The big news of today was Malik Monk was back in the lineup for the Sacramento Kings. The night ended with another Sacramento Kings loss. This is the fourth straight defeat that they have suffered. And the big question is, what the heck is going on? And we're going to get straight into that on the Believe in Kings podcast right now. As y'all know, I'm your host, Mark Haynes. And if you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe, like, share this. Anything you do in support of me in this podcast is much appreciated. But we're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings and their struggles and what is going on. And what I think, we talked about it a little bit last episode. I kind of placed blame on Mike Brown. Obviously, the coach can't get out there and make shots for the players. And that's one thing the Sacramento Kings have not done really all season. I was going to say during this stretch, but really it's been all season. They haven't shot the ball well. They've struggled from deep. They were shooting free throws well at the beginning of the year. They was doing really well. And now they're struggling from the free throw line. So shooting is just not their thing just yet. Even though I still, when I look at these guys, this is a team that should shoot the ball well, but for whatever reason, it's just not happening. But I don't necessarily think that's the biggest problem or the only problem. When I look at this team right now, I just see a lack of chemistry. Obviously they dealt with a lot of injuries. Sabonis missed time. Malik just got back from missing 7 games, I believe. DeMar DeRozan missed times with back spasms or back tightness or whatever, back issues. And I'm sure other guys are banged up. De'Aaron Fox, he's been wearing tape on his fingers all season, and it's not just for looks. It's not for looks at all. I'm sure he would rather just, you know, play without it. So, they're all banged up. Keegan Murray, something's going on with, his foot or whatever. You could see he's wearing, tape on his foot or whatever, whatnot. And it's probably like some type of adhesive or whatever. Who knows? But everybody's dealing with something. But at the end of the day, I think this is a chemistry thing. Obviously, this is a new team. Well, not a new team completely, but you bring in a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who is a, ball dominant player who's going to get he's going to get his looks, and he should be getting looks. Things are going to change for a lot of guys. And one person that changed for drastically was Keegan Murray. And so there's going to be an adjustment period for everybody. But I think the one mistake, and I'm not going to say mistake, so I take that back. I'm not going to use a harsh word, but you guys could, tell me if I'm right or wrong or whatever. But I think something that was questionable that happened that I think may have triggered this chemistry thing is starting Kevin Herter from the jump. After coming from a long injury, a season-ending injury last year, what was it, a shoulder, if I remember correctly. Um, After Keon he went through training camp. He was the starter last season, in place of Kevin Herter when he went down. They grew into, him being a starter. I think the team did. I think the flow. I think everybody got comfortable with it. And then game one, Kevin starts. Now, I said I'm on record on this podcast saying I understand, why Kevin Herter started. And I get it. I probably, after, if I was in the room or whatever and they talked to me, I think I could be easily convinced of why we starting Kevin and not Keon. But now, what was this game 18? Because yeah, they're 8-10. Game 18 at the last minute. Kevin Herter actually was. It looked like he was scheduled to start 25 minutes before the game. Then right before the game, Keon was thrown in the lineup. I'm not sure, how that worked or whatever, and I ain't trying to get nobody in trouble, but Keon ended up starting tonight. And he did his thing, but now it's a new lineup. And with Kevin, I think it was, putting him in the starting lineup, it ended up being slightly unfair to him. It sounds like a good idea, but it was, I feel like for the team, it was a slight setback because even when DeMar first got to the team, Keon got to go through a full training camp as the starting shooting guard next to DeMar. DeMar got time to know Keon. Everybody got time to get used to each other. Then Kevin comes game one, and now everything it's like, maybe this is 18 games. This is not like, this is not like a week. This is not a bad week of basketball. This is a questionable, almost quarter of the season. We're approaching that. We're approaching a quarter, and I believe this is too deep in the season to be still trying to figure out rotations, still trying to figure out where everybody likes the ball at, and with it being such a free flowing offense, I think it's making it even harder for guys to figure out where they're going to get their spots. But still, it doesn't excuse everyone from missing shots. And as we all seen the stats, circulating, and how Keegan and Kevin Herter and Malik and everybody is shooting under 30%, I believe, on open 3-point shots. And that's, no matter how you cut it, it's unacceptable. You have to make open shots. If you're tired, if you hurt, if you're on the court, you got to make open shots. There's no excuses. But there are things that could factor into, open shots, like chemistry. You know, it's a it's a big difference between having a ball for you and knowing that I'm going to shoot the rock compared to I just happen to get open and I gotta shoot it. It's different, and I feel like, and this is me personally, none of the players or coaches have admitted that. I feel like players are getting tough shots, and when they're getting open shots, are they getting shots in spots that they like the ball? But again, wide open is wide open. You gotta make wide open shots, but that's just like a free throw, which they ain't making that either. They ain't making free throws either. Then you add turnovers and stuff, and I think the team confidence is wavering right now. I think when I listen to these, post game press conferences and things, I'm like, the answers at first, their answers were, we just got to knock down shots. We got to, lock in. We'll be better. We'll do better. Blah blah blah. It's kind of upbeat. This after this, after this blowout loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who just basically did whatever they wanted to do, especially in that second half. The tone was different. It wasn't the same. Like nobody's happy after a loss, but this was just like sad. It was like funeral sad. Like, you know, people seem, confused and just lost and just defeated. Obviously, like they lost the game, but now they got to go. Like I said, Wednesday they got to go play Minnesota Sunday they back here at home and got to play the San Antonio Spurs. The next few games are going to be some tough games. And I think the next, couple of games or so, I think this is going to define the Sacramento Kings season. I think in the next 4 to 5 games, we will know if this is going to be a good team or if this is going to be a bad team. I think this is maybe the most important stretch of the Sacramento Kings season because you don't want to go crossing to the halfway mark of the year still dealing with these things, especially in the Western Conference. If you're in the East, it's a little different story. You got a little more time, but the West being so stacked, the West being so good, even if you're out of the play-in, if you're the 11th or 12th, team in the West, you're probably still a decent team. So when I say you're a good or bad team, I'm really talking about seeding. And to safely put it, if you don't make the playoffs, you go in the bad category. This would be a failed season if the Kings didn't make the playoffs. Bringing in DeMar DeRozan is for years, right? For years, Sacramento we have Sacramento fans have talked about Harrison Barnes needing to step up. Harrison Barnes hasn't. He's just not good enough. We need an upgrade. DeMar's an upgrade. Any way you put it, even although Harrison Barnes just got player of the week, shout out to HB, but DeMar is an upgrade. So when you bring DeMar in, I don't think any Sacramento fans is thinking anything less than a playoff appearance, preferably advancing out of the first round at that, because it's a talented team, especially in the starting five. The bench has a ton of question marks, and that's something that Mike Brown has to figure out too. But it's going to be hard to figure out your bench if you're still at game 18 figuring out your starting five. So I think the Sacramento Kings got off on the wrong foot. I think they're behind on fixing some things. But like I said, again, the next 5 games or so, I think these games will define the rest of the season. I think these games will define if this is a good or bad team, whether they're a playoff team or games that there's no gimmies. The Spurs is not an easy win. You already lost 4. If you lose to Minnesota and then come back Sunday and lose to the Spurs, that's 6 straight. I don't know. I'm not looking at any stats or anything, but I don't know how many teams in the history of the NBA have lost 6 straight and made the playoffs, let alone advanced out of the first round. I'm sure there are some teams, but that's not a good thing. That's not a good sign. Good teams don't go on long losing streaks. So this is a great opportunity. Could be a turning point for the Kings. And I actually believe that this team is good enough to dig deep and get the job done and win some tough games, because these are games they're going to have to go win. There is no give me's. And when you're playing bad, it really ain't no give me's. You got to go get it, and maybe that means, you're not shooting well, but you got to do something else. Everybody has to dig deep. This needs to be like they need to go into these next few games with the playoff mindset. Like they have to get a victory because continuing this losing streak, they lose the next 2. You know, when do they get a victory? You know, how long can this streak go? I don't think Sacramento fans like the Golden One Center is packed out every single night. And it's been like that for the last 2 years. But if we remember, which I'm sure we do, you know, prior to, you know, the Mike Brown era, the Sacramento Kings were not selling tickets. And fans want to see their team win. And bring, like I said, the excitement that has came with this group and the expectations. I think this, like I said, I think this is a moment or a time that we're going to remember in this 2024-25 season. I think this is a time we're going to say it's either we gonna say, man, remember the Kings, they had, you know, they got DeMar and we thought they was gonna be good, and then they lost like, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not putting this bad juju on the Kings. Like this, like I said, this is the Believe in Kings podcast, so I believe in them. But if it's like, oh man, you know, remember they went on that 9-game losing streak and everybody shot under 20% from three, and that was the, you know, that was the end of the season right there. That's when I stopped watching. Blah blah blah. Or they go and beat Minnesota. They go and beat the Spurs, and they put together a win streak, get above 500, get back on the winning side of things, and start lighting the beam again. This is be the time where you're like, man, I was worried. It looked like we was gonna go back down to losing all the time. We wasn't gonna see the beam lit no more, and blah blah blah. But then De'Aaron Fox started going crazy. Keegan Murray shot 40% from three in the second half of the season. Demonis Sabonis was playing at an MVP level. DeMar DeRozan, blah, blah, blah. Keon, da, da, da. Light the beam. Excuse me. This is the time one of those moments to go happen. Excuse me. And as y'all can see, my voice is going out. And it ain't going out. It's just more so dry. But remember this episode. Remember this day. And remember I said, moving forward, this is going to probably be the most important part of the season. This is a make or break time. And speaking of time, my time is up today. And this is the Believe in Kings podcast. I'm your host, Mark Haynes. And until next time, I'm out.